familiar with this. And there are very similar things that happen a lot on evangelical Christian stations in America. Some of them are extreme but sincere, and some you really have to question what these people actually representing at all. The kind of thing you said about premium rate phone lines and so on. But isn't that interesting that America, in some ways, the most advanced economy in the world, people who generally have very good access to education, at the heart of the West, and all of that is happening big time in America. So it maybe isn't just quite as simple as, you know, there are some people who've grown out of these stories because they've got a bigger perspective on the world. I don't have an answer to that, but I'm just saying that it seems that societies that are technologically advanced with good access to education.
Even though, what I was trying to say is that in the Holy Quran, the message is very clear. You have to learn, but you need that education to illuminate your learning. So the two go side by side. But also there's a rising demand in the West, America, wherever, for the spiritual connection. And how it is, what it is. And this label, mental health, is so broad. If 1 in 4 of us are suffering from mental health, should we blame it all on religion? So easy, and give it mental health. Is it the cure? Is it the answer? I don't know. It's a difficult one, Mufti. But it's not long ago that you were in Pakistan, and I don't know, but I was born in India, and I've been there, and I still see very much issues like this in the rural population. And in the cities, there are those, because remember, people from the rural areas have gone, the peasants have gone into the cities, and education wasn't that spread in the rural areas, so they still cling to, and it's a catching thing. My faith tells me I can't deny it, but I should leave it alone, because if you live a clean life, keep myself parked and clean, and I don't associate any other belief, etc., then I will be left alone. That's being a layman. If I was to, because I do prison visiting, and unfortunately, when you're vulnerable and you're locked up, your mind travels in a very mysterious way, and it is possible for the healthcare professional to look at a prisoner and say he's got mental health problems. What I would say is, well, he's feeling sorry for himself, and maybe if he was a Muslim or a Christian or whatever, he might be going on the journey in that little room he's locked up for what he's done wrong. Is he being punished? This concept of punishment for doing bad things, that's another avenue. But does it mean that somebody is there literally punishing you from inside, and you need to get? Because our faith is based on a clean heart. You leave the heart clean, then your body is clean, isn't it?
I think there's a difference. We were talking before about outside external forces, and I think there's a difference between experiencing or suffering something happening to you and being possessed by something.
And doing things involuntarily.
Well, I think there's a big difference between saying that I've had something bad has happened to me, which might be external forces acting on me, versus something internal happening within me, and I'm possessed by something. And I think there's a significant difference between them. I think it would be I would be much more comfortable with external forces acting upon something or somebody, but whereas being possessed by something I'm not as comfortable with that. Just as I think that's personal preference and what I feel comfortable with.
Roger, haven't you seen television shots of a church in Africa, for example, where the priest gets up and people literally start shaking, and he touches them and
they're healed.
And they're healed. And the families say, no, they're not possessed anymore. Look, you can see it on their faces. So there's a feeling, there's an acceptance something was and isn't. I mean, obviously you can't see that, but I was relating to the Imam about Imams I grew up in South Africa. I do know some who are known to be exorcists, and they actually withdraw the spirit from you and bottle it. And he has a power, and I think, and this is where my knowledge of Islam goes very funny, that there's good and bad, and God says, leave the bad alone. You know, black magic,
Yes,
white
black
magic,
magic
is different.
even you can say in India, there is a lot of black magic.
Now this is a difference, yeah.
Yes,
Magic
they can
per se.
says it in any person, or there are a lot of things in India if you can see as a black
I would say
magic.
Africa as well,
Yes.
and maybe even America. Girls, are we doing the right things? No direction?
Perfect.
I just did, Rashid and I had known each other for some time. He said that he has a military career, but he's also had a medical career, and obviously he's one who actually does have some proper medical training. And it seems to me, you know, what we talk about as mental health today is actually quite elusive. I mean, for how long has schizophrenia existed?
Oh,
In the 19th century, there was a popular disease called hysteria, which particularly
somebody's
affected
talking to me, so-
particularly affected middle-class women. It doesn't exist anymore. You know? These things are constructs to help us to talk about real problems that people are experiencing. The problems are real. But I'm not convinced in a generation or two we'll still necessarily be talking about schizophrenia. We might be talking about some other way of describing these experiences. There isn't something there that is like a bacteria that could be withdrawn and put under a microscope and analysed. It's a technical way of talking about an illness that we can recognise as having common properties and responding to some common treatments. But it's not a bug that you can extract and examine. So it would be possible to talk about it in those ways.
You're right. There were lots of Epsom had one of the biggest hospitals here.
Huge
Mental
hospital.
health hospital,
Yes,
that's
huge.
completely gone. So were we wrong in putting them there?
Yeah.
Because they were diagnosed, labelled as mental. And was that mental illness due to a spiritual thing or lack of spiritual help? I don't know. Or were they possessed?
But I think there's even the scientists are very much in dispute with that as far as what causes symptoms of. We'll talk about mental health, but I mean there's all kinds of other illnesses or conditions that are more physical, not just with mental health, that could also be discussed. If it's hereditary, if it's in the genes, if it's the chemicals, the hormones in the body, what exactly is causing it? Is it is it some kind of a post-traumatic situation where you're reacting to something? Is it a spiritual crisis? Does it have to do with one's faith, that I lack faith in God or how I relate to the world? Is there something lacking there? Is it behavioral? I mean, there's already a whole variety of, and that's in the science. They're in dispute of this, and I think where we fit in as people of faith, how that fits in, I think is an interesting question.
There's an interesting story, as you may know, as Rashid referred to just down the road in Epsom. There was this cluster, not one hospital, several hospitals on a huge open field site, which basically provided mental health care for South London in the last century and the century before that. That's virtually all knocked down now. Large areas have been built on as housing. And I lived in that area. It was in an area before I came here. And there was a lot of talk about houses being built there and people talking about bad spirits in that place because of what had happened there. It's the human suffering and anxiety and fear that there had been around and contained within some of these institutions. So that there was, and I don't actually know whether anything was actually done directly by local churches or not, but there were actual concerns in the community about housing being built in this bad place. Now, isn't that interesting? We talk about being this educated society. But I think we have to honour that and say there is a sense in which you can genuinely feel that something is haunted by what has happened there. And people know the story of what has happened there. And it has a powerful emotional effect on them. They can't just let go of it. They need something to set them free of it. They need to do or say something that's symbolic that enables them to be free of that. Now, it was a curious thing to have happened in that place, but it did trouble some people. It genuinely did trouble them.
It's military propaganda and using the psyche to use deception or whatever the force. I mean, there are military historical episodes where an army has seen another army which was greater but wasn't